Hello?
I cannot hear you.
Okay, so she can't hear me.
Drew, I can't hear you.
Now you hear me. Now you hear me. We got it. We got it. We got it. So do you guys get that? She's not hearing me out of this. We just...
What's happening? Here's the funny part that you don't see or the people watching this don't see. We have 4 state-of-the-art cameras surrounding me
Right.
that are, literally remote Wi-Fi. They go to the server. We can edit instantly. We've spent months and months building this to get it up set inside. Something went wrong for the first time today, and right now I'm doing this on an old laptop, Zoom style, just from my wall behind me. So
There's no faking it. It either works or it doesn't work.
well, and here's, what's crazy is when you think back March in COVID, I was shooting that day, and we had a large shoot offsite in a studio, typical commercial shoot. That afternoon here at our office, our studio for our agency, I watched 25 people leave from my office, and it was like heartbreaking. It was the saddest day, knowing that we had to stop midstream. The next day, we were set up remote. We had 17 editors, graphics people, animators, all around working from their homes. And I think that was a testament to, sink or swim.
Right.
We didn't have a choice. I call it like the world's biggest Band-Aid that I've ever been a part of. And we had a lot of glitches. And I remember one night running out 2 nights to Best Buy, buying a new color monitor on credit cards, because the one that we have and spent thousands and thousands of dollars on, for whatever reason, wasn't working at the guy's house who we had sent home with the color monitor.
Right.
So that is what the world of production, film, TV, commercial has been through, and one of the main reasons we wanted to speak to you today. So thank you for being here.
I can't believe it's been 7 months, but I remember the day and everything, how it felt like it was only going to be a week, maybe 2, right? We were all like, wait, maybe it'll be a month. It's not going to be long. And we did have to adapt and all that. We did our first major negotiation was done by Zoom. Can I talk about the challenge of doing that? But thank God for the technology. When you talk about like us really trying to, adapt really quickly and be, flexible and, and effective, we did it, but I had to say, I never imagined doing that in this format.
I think overnight what had happened was we all became so proud of ourselves for being able to complete a Zoom video call. I know I was. That was one of the biggest things for me, where I literally was patting myself on the back and saying to my whole team, and you'd see that checkered look on the board, the grid of everyone's face. And, and I'm like, and by the way, who's excited that I was able to do this Zoom, and who isn't that great? I did it on my own. I'm looking at like 25 faces, like, this idiot's in charge of this ship. Oh my God. Like, if the virus doesn't get us, this will, but there's so many steps to it. And we had a double whammy in the production world that we're in, because on the one hand, all production stopped, obviously, and all production is what leads to post in many ways. And then on the other hand, a lot of brands, and I don't say this in a negative way, which is why I'm not going to mention any specific names, even the ones who stuck us, but everyone was holding on to their cash flow. And I get that. And these decisions actually came at a very high level. You had CFOs of large companies saying, we don't know what's happening in the world. We have to lay off thousands of employees overnight, furloughing thousands of employees overnight. We saw it happen with a lot of our brands, partners, clients. And in many cases, money that was even due in that day or that week, people just held. And thankfully that got caught up. But it has been such a crazy, not even a 1-2 punch to those of us in the industry. It was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, keep punching, kicking.
It's still going. Kicking. I feel like it hasn't ended. Honest to God, I don't feel like we've settled into this final discovery of how to make it work. I really feel like we are treading water, and waves are crashing all the time. And we're trying, for at least on my side, trying to manage all of that and make it be effective. Because I know that, we're going to finish this period of time. It will be done. We will go into whatever that new, I hate saying it because I hate this phrase. I don't know why. The new normal thing. I really hate that.
I knew where you were going to go with that because we all hate it.
I hate that phrase. This is the new normal. This is not normal. I don't know what the future looks like. And I definitely think there's going to be a change. But, you know, we are trying to normalize what we know in order to keep functioning so that you get paid and that you get to work and that you know what I mean? All these, and that we get to produce ideas and that we get to move forward and that we get to keep living. It's that unknown, you know, the wild, wild west.
To be honest, it's helpful hearing it from you. I think I'm going to call this a free therapy session today and save myself $300 later and hold off on my normal one. No, I'm not kidding. I literally have gotten to the point where first week, second week, you know, you have this phase where you go from trying to reassure everyone else and you know, because we all have our lives outside of work as well, and children and families and all that, and at work. And, you know, if your team thinks that you're worried or nervous, well, how are they going to? So you go through all of that. And then to your point, we thought a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months. At some point, you think the lifeboat's going to come. And then you realize.
Looking for land, right?
Yeah. Then you're like, well, it never did come for everyone on the Titanic. The water was pretty cold. And you start to think of the other analogies. But it's an interesting thing that then all of a sudden, so for us, you know, there were two things that came up that I've kind of clung to, really three, which was that what was going to make the difference for us, and it really has, in a very big way, was the people that I was surrounded with. If I'm grateful for anything in 2020, if I showed you my list of things I'm not grateful for, or angry, or vengeful, or spiteful for in 2020, that'd be a very long list. If I told you what I'm grateful for at the top is all of the people here around me at our agency. We'd have been done and done and done. And the resilience of the people here and in our industry and crews as we've gotten back to work has just, and I go, you know, as the president of SAG, obviously, it's the human spirit that has kept me, us, I think everything going at this point.
Oh, yeah. I think it's the human spirit. I think it is this really interesting survival thing, which is the idea that we have hope, right? And that we, you know, we're able to visualize, even if it's fantasy or not, I don't know what tomorrow could be. And that gives us the opportunity. But I think totally, for me, I'm with you. It is the people around me. It is, if you were to talk about a silver lining moment, right? Because I think that there's got to be something we get out of it. There are several silver linings, and one of them is relationships and communication, that ability that we really seek a way to make it work, and we actually do pretty well, you know, and we're reminded, you know, this is a catastrophe in a different way when you think about, I thought about it the other day when 9/11, you know, and look how the resiliency of New York, you know, and how we as a country came through that, how New York came through that. And right now, even New York, again, is that inspiration for us. They were hardest hit, you know, in the country. And now my daughter, who's living there, moved there 2 weeks before, you know, COVID, when shutdown happened. And she's talking about how it's so much more vibrant now and people are out there, and there is definitely some, it's all about relationships, but there are some silver linings coming out of this.
So you must have thought a bunch of times, man, I picked a great window to run for president of SAG, right? You saw this coming a mile away.
First of all, it's SAG-AFTRA, but yes, you know, don't forget I'm going into my, oh my God, 4.5 years of being the president of SAG-AFTRA. And this, I must say, could not have been planned, of course. And I am like, damn, why? But I actually, so when you talk about this moment, and I have to say, it really is a challenging time. Our members are really, really suffering, as the whole industry is. I mean, it's been devastating when you talk about work really just stopped. So that meant health stopped, our, you know, collecting, ultimately unemployment unless we're able to get the next, you know, and we don't know what's going to happen out of Washington, right? We're going to see if we get anything out of that.
Right.
But people are really, so I think that I just never imagine, so the silver lining I can only say is I do believe that everything is in its time. And I think that it was important to have somebody who at least had some understanding of our organization and had been in leadership role, because I even in having that, I think that I hope it's been helpful, but I think anybody who had been in this position as a first-time president would have been devastated, because it's really devastating.
Well, but you have experience as a leader in SAG-AFTRA, but that leads into something which I think is great, and is one of the reasons I think SAG-AFTRA is so effective under your leadership, of course, and individuals before you, is you're not phoning it in. I haven't mentioned it yet, but if anyone hasn't picked up on it, I'm sure there's a million people watching, so she looks familiar. Where's she? You know, a little TV show called 90210. So you grew up in the business. You understand. You have been on both sides. You know, I know Dana and Adrian, who are in some of these programs, sometimes all they said when I said, what are all your questions? All they wanted me to say is, you know, what's it like to kiss Jason Priestley? But I said, I'm going to get into a lot more serious. She said fabulous, in case you were wondering. You see it all the time in these large organizations. You'll see the head of a pipe welders union, and you're like, this guy has never picked up a tool in his life. He's got the perfect manicure, you know, and a $5,000 suit. I think that it's tremendous for all of SAG-AFTRA members that the leadership understands and knows what it's like, and are successful working actors.
I think the relationship between leadership and the members is really important. And I think it's really been helpful when I go into a negotiation, because I still work, that I actually, those contracts are living contracts for me as well. So that people know that when I'm going in to lead a negotiation or whatever, that I'm there for all of us, because we all benefit in the success of it, and we struggle with the challenges, right? But it's always been that way historically for the union. I think that nowadays, you know, because things are changing, you know, Screen Actors Guild, and then when we merged, I think the participation of leadership is even deeper now, because it's not just enough to say, you know, it used to be, I'm a Screen Actors Guild. I don't want to say it's an elitism. It's not that, right? But there was a sense of, you know, well, don't you know who I am? I think that's really, I don't want it, people are going to like, you know, but it really was. And I think nowadays you're seeing much more of people, no matter whether they're high pros or just coming into it, recognizing that they're also workers, right? Like it's different. It's not just about being a star. It's not just the glitz. It's about working day in and day out, making a living, supporting your family. And that's recognized. And as a result of that, anybody in leadership has to really be engaged. I think in order, you know, on a federal level, legislatively, you have to be engaged on a local level and with communications. And, you know, I mean, it's like, but always this will be important to our members, is to have, I think, a working actor in the leadership role.
I agree. And as you're talking about legislation, and you brought up prior the government's role in needing to help, the biggest issue, I would imagine, I'm seeing it day to day and haven't quite figured it out or come close to it, hours and hours and hours and hours, is insurance, liability. Right. What do we do about that? I'm on one committee myself with a bunch of people much smarter, so I just kind of listen in, and there's a lot of political folks on that committee that are talking about some type of a backstop, but every single shoot that we do, and you know, knock on wood, we have 3 shoots going on today. And again, when I say that I am beyond appreciative for the people here, I didn't know that we'd be here 6-7 months ago. And yet today alone, we have 3 different shoots spread out in different areas. One of them we might even pop in on shortly and take you on a tour if technically it works through to my phone. But every single thing is tied into insurance. Can you even get it? Liability, who's liable? And this goes back to well beyond the talent, crews, individuals, owners of companies. Where are we at, and where do we need to go quickly from where you're sitting?
Well, first of all, where we're at is we definitely need the government to intervene here and give some kind of financial support for some kind of insurance policy to help businesses, right? I mean, you just can't, this is a global pandemic that no one individual is responsible for in terms of, well, some people might disagree, but that we as individuals are not responsible for. It is a pandemic that's occurring, and we are being victimized by this pandemic, and we need the government to help support what is already exorbitant, for individuals, exorbitant healthcare costs, but in terms of insurance, to be able to help the businesses, your business and other businesses, to be able to work and not feel so afraid or threatened that you're going to lose everything in one fell swoop if somebody gets ill due to being at work. So I think that there has to be some kind of support given to us on the federal level. I think that what we're doing for that is we're working on the protocols and safety. If I say, here we are in a pandemic, work stopped, we know we want work to start, how do we make it start in a responsible way so that once we go back, we don't leave? It's not, a stop, start, because I think that financial burden could be tremendously, it could be a tremendously painful thing to have. That would be even worse, I think. So How do we get back to work and then stay in work?
And let me break that down for people who are not, who don't work in the industry that you and I do per se. So here's a real world example that happens every single day right now for pretty much anyone who is in this line of work. We work on a variety of different commercials in different capacities, all different formats, all different types of end products, brands, what have you. We have production insurance, general liability insurance, and a variety of different types of insurance. Anyone that we work with needs to see a COI, a certificate of insurance, whether it's stage, and so that is all standard that exists depending on who is involved. Sometimes we might need to carry $2, $3, $4, $5 million worth of liability. We're all used to that. That's standard operating procedure. Then COVID comes, and the first thing everybody realizes is that virtually no production policies whatsoever, doesn't really matter who you are, is covering infectious disease, epidemics, so on and so forth. So overnight, whether you want to film a movie, whether you're filming a TV show, a commercial, anything whatsoever, you have brands, clients, studios who are saying, we want to be insured and be protected in case somebody gets sick from cost liability, but you have everybody else on the other end who might be required typically to carry the insurance saying, we don't have it and we can't get it.
Not only for getting sick though, right? The idea for insurance for production, for those people who are like listening for the first time also, is that if you have somebody, let's say who's a lead or who's really key, and they get sick and you have to end the production, or you have to wait till that costs too, right? Because all the guarantees for the people who you said you were going to pay, for the places that, the locations that you might want to be shooting at, for everything else. And how do you get back to work after that if people don't go off to do other work and now you're being left with a partial shoot? So it's a very complicated and risky situation.
It has a million facets. It's a great point. I mean, Batman recently had to shut down temporarily, with obviously a very high profile person testing positive. And you're exactly right. So basically what it means is that any financial impact that COVID may cause, be it someone's illness or death and everything that comes from that, obviously the human toll and the financial toll, loss, a film, a commercial. When we go and shoot certain productions, we may be 3-4 days out or in the middle of one where hundreds of thousands, sometimes in the millions, are committed. Right. And if we have to shut down on a dime, like what happened in March to everyone, who's responsible for that?
Right. What is it? Force majeure? Do you have a force majeure? Are you going to have to pay it out? Are you going to wait? Are you going to, and when we're talking about our business, it's just complicated I'm sure in every business there is, but in our business, there is an in the moment experience of what we do, right? We can, and we don't get to, and you can't, we tried to shoot some commercials by Zoom. You saw that initially. How do you do it from home? Well, that's not sustainable. How many people are going to want to watch, our talking heads going back and forth from, oh my God. That's so right. It's a big challenge. Yeah. And for actors, we talked about this before, for performers, stunts, all those, we don't wear PPE when we work. So we know that, if you look at the CDC, they're saying, we know that that, you know, the best thing is, you know, to have like facial protection, you know, masks or whatever, and you have to do 6-foot separation and all those things. Well, when you get on set, that's not the reality, right? That's not going to make for great commercials or TV ultimately, unless every story has this kind of distant thing. So how do you make sure everybody's as safe as possible in that situation, so you can come back the next day and the next day and the next day? It's big.
You're describing my life 24/7 right now, and I mean, you know, there are so many factors involved. We had a shoot recently where we're assessing, okay, so if everyone's wearing masks, loading in, loading out, but it's 85 degrees out on this particular day, how long can grown humans carrying heavy equipment breathe in their own you know, carbon monoxide back and forth? And what that, so the other factor that comes in is the actual shoots themselves are far more costly to produce. So the safety, much, and they're great. I mean, I've read the protocols, SAG-AFTRA. We follow them. I think that's a tremendous service that you guys put out, so there's a uniform starting point. But at the end of the day, on top of all of the lost revenues, now you have as well that it's 30% plus, at least from what we're seeing, probably more, costly to actually shoot what you used to do. You need more days because you have to get everyone off set quicker. Everyone's in masks. And I think what's important, it's not lost on everybody as well, is that if you think back and compare it to Major League Baseball, Major League or football, the NFL, whenever there's been a strike in sports, and this is not a strike by any means, but where the game couldn't go on, it isn't just the athletes who most people's perceptions are they're making tens of millions of dollars. What do they care? It's people who are trying to come up and struggling their whole life, to make it, but on top of it, it's the guy who sells peanuts at the arena. It's the people who park cars. It's the restaurants down the street. In our industry, and I've seen this over and over and over again, if you bring up production or Hollywood, and everything is shot all over the world, all over the country, but Hollywood, and that's, you know, that's fine. There's this almost blind perception that everybody makes $25 million a film. And come on, the truth of the matter is, I mean, I read a statistic years ago, I don't know what it is to this day or if you track it anymore, but even of actual SAG-AFTRA members, the actual average income, or, you know, it is not people who are making.
No, it's such a misnomer. Actually, most of our members, these are working class people. That's why I really focus on the fact that we're a labor union, right? It is really workers who are looking to go and be able to put a roof over their families' heads, make sure they have the kind of, you know, whether it's healthcare, pension, making sure that they're able to pay. It's really about paying their rent and putting their kids through school, and it's day in, day out. It is not more than that. It's a very small percent of people who are up in that universe that people are identifying with. But that is not what runs this industry in any way. It is all workers. And whether that's crew, that's the workers, whether it's actors, you know, stunt, singer, whatever, those are workers.
And you're talking about the people who cater the sets. I mean, you know, when we started to send out payments and we, you know, reached out to people and said, look, our money froze up. We're waiting for this. We're going to pay you, but it's going to take an extra week or two. You know what we heard from people? Oh my God, thank you. No, but and when we would send checks to vendors who had already done work, and I'm not saying this to give ourselves a pat on, we heard things like, wow, and how much of it do you plan on paying us? And we said, all of it. And they said, you're nobody else. So, I mean, these are people whose livelihood, they're not actors that are dependent on this, and they haven't made their fortune. They're trying to, you know, they're people who are doing hair on set and wardrobe, and they're people who are building things and carrying and doing a lot of work. So insurance coming up with some type of a backstop, do you think we're going to achieve that anytime soon?
Look, I hope so. We're doing our reach outs. We're trying to find a way. That's something actually more the studios and the producers, I think, I'm sure, are looking for insurance on the sets for that. For us, we're looking to make sure that there's protections and safety on the sets for everybody. you know, so that's where I think a lot of everybody has to be able to find a way to get involved legislatively, because it's not going to just be the insurance to protect the person who gets sick, the actor on set, to make sure that I have coverage when I'm in the hospital, if that happens, right? But, you know, if as a production, that's going to have to come again from the industry, which there is a lot of push in so many different ways. And it's something that, you know, production companies also should be in that conversation.
Well, right now, what's really happening, this is the honest truth in the front lines, this is what's happening. You know, you have, you know, legal waivers that everybody, you know, requires everybody to sign to even be on a set. You have back and forth between production companies, agencies, brands, who's putting up what. So really, I can tell you, hands down, there's this tangled web of, you know, what goes from there. The number one thing is we're all going to sink or swim through this. To the point, no one portion is going to parcel out and ride this out completely clean and say, wow, we figured this out, while everybody else sits there saying. So I think that's helpful that everybody is involved in that and looking at it. I want to ask a couple of questions that go back to your journey to this role, and then I'm going to take you on a little tour next door in a second and show you some of the things that I think are representative of what other people can do or consider in these types of climates. But 90210, tell me a little bit about that. I'm sure you get asked about it a lot. And is it during that window that you had this urge that said, I'm going to be involved on a deeper level? Or when did that come about?
When I first got into 90210, I didn't even know that the union we talked about this. I didn't even know that members were involved with any of the governance of the union. I actually thought the union was in this building that went and with lawyers. They just negotiated contracts for us. Had no idea that the members were involved, that there was a board of members. I just didn't know. And I'm sure if somebody had told me about it, I would have been interested, but I was just a working actor, you know, going contract to contract, whether I was doing my commercials, 90210, doing voiceovers, animation, whatever I was doing, I was just doing it to make a living. And then it was about, 2007, that I was partially paralyzed shooting in a movie, and I was not able to speak or work. I stopped working for a couple of years. And during that period of time, somebody had asked if I would come sit in a meeting at the union. Again, I didn't know anything about it. I went to a convention, actually. And I stood up and I said, what is this contract? There was a small contract that had been created for new media or something. And I said, it's a terrible contract. It doesn't reflect the work that I usually, what is da da? And then they explained it to me. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I was asked to sit in and run. And I literally couldn't work. I was at UCLA because I had a movement disorder as a result of this injury. And I thought I can spend time doing this. I don't want to stay home all the time. And I started getting involved with the unions, and I got onto both boards of AFTRA and SAG at that time, and I started to really get engaged with it. And then I wanted to help merge the unions. I was one of the performers who was covered by both unions. I didn't understand why we had two unions, two places to pay for, you know, dues. I didn't want to be defined by my union. I wanted to define my work and have my union take care of me. So I worked on merger, and then I became the first executive vice president of the union, SAG-AFTRA, and here I am. It's been 4.5 years.
You and I spent time in college. You just didn't realize it. And by that, this is a true story. So I went to Arizona State University, which at the time was known as much for drinking and everything else as getting some type of a degree. Mm-hmm. My claim to fame is 6.5 years to get a 4-year degree, but I managed to do it. And every single time 90210 was on, it would be 8 to 10 sophomore, junior, idiot college boys that would all go to one of my friends' apartments, and it was 90210 night. I kid you not. Mm-hmm. And I mean, crammed around the TV, who was bringing the beers, everything else. And we would sit there, and that was our pregame, our warm-up before we would go out for the night to whatever stupid activity we were going to do that night. But we missed exams. We missed
Oh my God.
Some of us missed graduation ceremony and slept in that day. We never missed a new episode of 90210. And I am finally at the point in my life where I'm almost secure enough, I guess, secure enough to admit it and scream it out loud. But I have to be honest about that. I can no longer hide that. So it's a true story.
I very much appreciate it.
I don't think any of the guys that I used to do that with will admit that, and they're all going to go dark on me. But
you're funny. I actually heard that people had like drinking games. Like if one of us said something, then it would be a shot. Or I think that's. I mean, honest to God.
Every time Brenda would kiss someone, if Brenda was kissing someone, or Luke Perry, or whoever, and I'm sure. So not the worst one. So here's something interesting, and I'm gonna maybe our technology will fail, maybe it won't. But what I'm gonna do is this. I mentioned that we have 3 different shoots going on today alone that we're involved in. A couple of them are larger out-of-house productions, but one of them, and this is where it's very helpful to have people who are creative and scrappy. We're doing this from our main office. Our main office is a facility that we have our editing bays, our graphics people, and about 70% of our folks are in office again. Like many businesses around the country, when COVID hit, our building became about half empty within 2 weeks. Literally, we saw people emptying out, going out in the middle of the night on weekends. We'd come back and our next door neighbors would be gone. At the end of that first month, it became clear that we were going to be fortunate and make it through and even go to survive to thrive, which is really what we're starting to do now, getting into that thrive mode, which I knock on wood for. But we made sure of reaching out to our manager of our building and said, look, we know a lot of people are not able to pay rent or not. We're okay. We're going to be paying, and we're paying in advance just to take some of your strain off. They've been very nice. And on occasion, when we say, hey, these spaces are all empty, we have a shoot coming up, and they've said, go ahead and use it. So I'm going to take you on a tour a few feet from here. I should be able to do this on FaceTime if this works. All right. I got it. It was on there. I just realized. Can you hear me at all?
Good.
Everybody can see behind me that this is our facility where we have all the editing bays and graphics in El Segundo by LAX. So now, as everyone can see, this office is right down the hall from us and had a lot of people in here for years. But today, this office for us has been our latest production where we were able to come over and set up. And what do we have going on? We've got our green screen that we were able to set up. We've got our crew of people who are kind of finishing up lunch break. Hello, everybody. Anybody alive with
everybody. Hey.
So it's kind of cool. You're speaking to Gabrielle.
Hi.
President of SAG and some other things that you may recognize her
SAG-AFTRA, SAG-AFTRA.
SAG-AFTRA, I said it wrong. It's an interesting thing, but it's one more example of that if you can get really scrappy, there are a lot of good people out there, even some of the people that own the buildings. Yeah, they're trying to collect rent, and I know it's really hard on a lot of people. It hasn't been easy on us. But in this case, you know, a building owner was nice enough to say, hey, use this space. We're not going to charge you anything. If you can get some money back, great. And you know, encouraging us to survive and keep going. So, all right. So that was somewhat my biggest feat of the day, being able to at least pull that off in some way in real time. So
I want to say congratulations for making it work. I mean, really, it is inspirational. People are trying to do it in every way they can. And thank you for sharing that. Cause I think we have to feel like it's hopeful, right? You got to be creative. You got to be innovative. You got to be willing to communicate, to say what you need, and you did it. And good.
We have 3 different sets in there. We were using a welder with a fake blowtorch who was melting fat earlier today with power tools behind them. All of the furniture, like in my office and all these offices, all of our couches and tables were gone. Yesterday, the entire team from our accounting staff to whoever it was lifting up tables and couches and moving props over, and today it all goes back. But that's the human spirit part and we've been very blessed and fortunate to see it, not just within our own team here at launch, but throughout and through people who are doing like what you're doing at SAG-AFTRA. So I hope that your positive message and efforts continue to reach people. They've certainly resonated with us. So thank you beyond for all that you're continuing to do.
Ryan, thank you so much for what you do. And I thank you for inviting me to be here. I really all I can say is, I know that we will get through this, but we will have to do it together and be creative. And thank you. Thank you for starting to work, because that means others are working, and we want that. We definitely want that. So thank you.